Hampton University Radio
is Smooth 88.1.
WHOV Hampton.
You must be careful about the words you use, or the words you allow to be used in your house. Words are things. You must be careful. Careful about calling people out of their names, using racial pejoratives and sexual pejoratives and all that ignorance. Don't do that.
It's time to talk about it.
Pull up a chair and take a seat.
We're serving up recipes for life.
With Hampton University's Dr. Richard Mason and Dr. Tamara Williams.
Welcome to the Sunday Brunch.
This is Dr. Tamara Williams.
And this is Dr. Richard Mason. Welcome to another edition of Sunday Brunch with the Good Doctors. It's been a week, I tell you.
It's been quite a week.
So much has happened all week, but I tell you, I'm rested today.
You look well rested, brother. You look well rested today. This is a good Sunday.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I tell you, everything on the table today is going to certainly blow your mind. That's for sure.
Well, we have needed our rest today.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
okay.
You will need your rest. I'll tell you, because right now the appetite is there. Okay. You know, so I'm ready to eat. That's for sure.
You're ready to eat? Well, I'm glad that we have some great food here on the table today. I did bring my appetite today to Sunday Brunch, so I'm excited.
Oh, yeah.
To be back at the table with the family once again. We never know who we are going to bring to the table. We never know.
Not at all. Not at all. And so when the dish is served, you know, it's one of those things that we all sit back and have a good time at this table and enjoy our company and everything or whatever. So, but today is a good day. And the thing on the table today, we're going to be talking about some adverse childhood experiences and that resilience, because we know in families, those things happen. Once again, we've talked about these secrets and everything that goes on in the families and all. And some of these things just go swept under the rug that we just never deal with. But to have someone here today.
Nobody wants to bring it to the table, right?
Right, exactly.
They want you to pretend as if it never existed, never happened. Mm-hmm. Holidays come up and they want you to sit there and eat your mashed potatoes as if everything was all good.
With the gravy. With the gravy.
You know, we don't get to pick our family, but we do get to pick our friends.
Exactly. And, you know, I was having a conversation last week, as a matter of fact, after the show, and was talking to someone in terms of just the whole issue of adoption and stuff like that or whatever. And the reality is, when you're in that situation, we know it's a challenge, not knowing your biological family, but recognizing that your adopted family chose you, you know. And so it really gets really interesting when you talk about some of those things. And when you're getting into kids dealing with adverse childhood experiences and being placed in foster care and being adopted and stuff like that or whatever, it's a touchy situation.
Very touchy, because we're talking about the family, and we know in our communities, people never want to speak about the things that happen in our families. They don't want anybody to know the stigma attached to just the struggle.
Exactly. You got to keep that church face on. Some of you just left church, and we know you left church with that. I'm blessed and highly favored. Yeah, exactly.
Trying to cover and mask your face.
Exactly.
And your problems. So, not today.
No.
Not today. We're going to have a good conversation today.
Yes,
and
we are.
Hopefully it'll be a healing conversation for some other people out there who have gone through these same type of situations.
Exactly. And that's what we always hope, that someone is blessed by what we're able to talk about here at the table and have these conversations at your home table, you know. And hey, if you need to call us and talk about your table, or, you know, move forward with some things that you need some help with, you know, always feel free to reach out to us. You know, we are definitely here for it.
Look what you starting. He's real rested. Look what he's starting. Real rested. He's feeling it today, you guys. He's like, bring me all your problems, come one and all.
Hey, just a few. Not okay. All of them, just a few. Right. Just a few.
Thank you for clarifying, good doctor. Thank you for clarifying.
Well, I tell you what, let's go ahead and let our guest introduce himself to everybody today, you know, and tell us a little bit about him. So I'm going to go ahead and fix my plate while he introduces himself. So I'll turn the mic on over to you, Bobby.
Welcome to Sunday Brunch.
Thank you guys for having me. My name is Bobby Lewis, and I'm a Hampton native. And yes, I'm just so stoked to be here, being a part of HU. You know, because this is major. You know, my mother used to work at WHOV when I was a kid.
Okay.
One of my earliest memories, I was probably like 6 years old, and she opened the back door. And we went into the back, and there was a parade going by. And she did hair, and yeah, you know, I'm just happy to be here.
I used to get my hair cut at Nouveau U when I was in school.
Wow.
Yeah, I did. Marva used to cut my hair at Nouveau U.
I was going to ask you when. I ain't going to do it.
Yes, Miss Walker and all of them, Marva and all of them. Yeah.
I was too young to know who they were, but I also was a barber, so I guess it's in blood.
Yeah, definitely.
Small world. You never know when you bring it to the table.
Not at all. Not at all.
That. Yeah.
So tell us about yourself. Tell us your story. Tell us who Bobby is.
Hi, Bobby.
Hi. So thank you for having me again, doctors and everyone involved. And I just, you know, I'm just a native, and I like to say I'm a soldier in the struggle. You know, like most of us. I'm no one different or better than anyone else, but I just, as the doctors were saying, you know, I'm one person who believes in the advocacy of putting out the messages that are not talked about. You know, a real grassroots movement, talking about the struggle, talking about the negativity of where one comes from, because a lot of our prestige is not in our cars, it's not in our degrees, you know, or as a veteran personally with a degree, I can say my greatest pride comes from my first car. And it was old when I got it. It was 2009. It was a 95 Nissan Sentra, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
He's really aging us over here.
Yes. But I got it fresh out of high school. It had 18-inch rims on it, 10-inch speakers in the back. But
you were doing big things at that time.
I was trying, you know. And what I realized is that energy, a lot of times that we put out just to finish high school. For some people from certain communities, they don't go through those struggles necessarily to overcome such adverse childhood experiences. And based on the energy you're putting out alone, you may have a bachelor's degree, but you've put out enough energy to have a doctorate degree, you know, and that's what I want to convey. There's pride, like as J. Cole said, you know, there's a blessing in the struggle. No, there's beauty in the struggle. And I just want to make us more cognizant of that, so we don't become too materialistic, and so we can have more identity in who we were when we were younger, or coming through those circumstances, using my story to do it.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your story, because you're saying struggles, but that's ambiguous in a sense, because everybody struggles. We all have different types of struggles. And you said environment, so you said you're native of Hampton. There's so many different areas of Hampton, so talk to us. You know, what is that part of your story?
It is. When I was born, I was the third of three children. I have two older sisters. God bless them. You know, my parents, God bless them. You know, everything that I'm going to speak on, it comes from a people who are oppressed, and it's generational. So when I say this, everyone's a victim.
That's your caveat. You're like, let me start right here and say, before I even tell you what happened, that I'm not blaming anybody. You know, this is something that was generational in a sense,
right? And that's a good place to start and put it, because the reason why a lot of folks don't talk about these things and bring these things to the table is because they feel like someone's going to blame them,
or they're going to make the other person feel bad.
Right, exactly.
Putting other people's feelings before themselves. Yeah.
And it's not about blame. It's really about healing. You know, you have to be able to put those things on the table. You can't pretend that a wound is going to heal itself by acting as if it's not there. You know, you really have to treat it.
Trying to cover it up. You know, let's not put any Cool Whip on this cake.
Exactly. So tell us about your childhood and everything. You know, jump right on in.
Yeah. So I was the third of three children. My father was in the Marine Corps. My mom did hair. And by the time I was born, things kind of went left. I don't need to know the details, but I do know she left him, took me and my sisters in tow when he was at work. You know, kind of like fled him. You know.
See, your father was Marine. Was he like a veteran? Like, was that wartime? Was he?
He didn't go into war. Okay. But something happened. I don't know if it was boot camp. I don't know how much of that is Marine Corps, how much of that is pre-trauma from his childhood. I know, you know, trauma can work with each other and compound each other.
I trained with the Marines. I was traumatized. I'm just gonna say that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can imagine. But she fled with him, and then we went from kind of like Shell Road area to Lincoln Park. So now we're going from a house with a husband, wife, and 3 kids to just wife and 3 children, and the public housing, Lincoln Park apartments. And I don't want to speculate on what happened and how it went about, but there came a time where, because of pain, my mother was abused, my sisters, they seen it. So, that a lot of that may have come on to me because of that. But again, they have their traumas too from the situation, which I know nothing about. But I look like my father. I'm named after him. Got light brown eyes like him, And it came a time where.
Are you saying that he abused your mom and your sisters witnessed that?
He my first memory of my father when I was 5 years old. He came to Lincoln Park to see us. So I'm glad you asked. You're pushing me into the story more.
I just want to make sure I understand.
Yes, and thank you so much. And he came to see me, and I saw him from he stopped about 10 feet away, and he smiled, and I smiled, and then it became a nervous situation. Like, okay, what do we do? I thought he kind of hugged me at this point from what I saw on TV, And then he just smiled, and I kind of walked up to him, and I didn't know what the smile was about, but I think he bent down and kind of gave me a hug. It was kind of silent, and then he took me by the hand, and we went into our apartment, Lincoln Park, where he was visiting us at our apartment, and he sat across from me, and he had his hands clasped, and his legs copped out. They call it man spacing. Some people call it that. And I was nervous, but I said I'm going to be strong and try to push this moment so I can get to my father.
Right.
And you had not met him prior to? Okay.
Never met him, but something in my spirit was like, I don't know what I had heard, but I kind of knew I was nervous. I should be nervous, but I didn't know him. So I just said, "So, Dad," I jumped right into reporter mode. "So, Dad, tell me something about you." And I can't say what he said, but he barked at me. What the F is there to know? I got a DNBALL, just like you, son.
Okay. I had to interpret that, but now I understand he has the same anatomy. Yes, sir. Okay.
Drill sergeant jumped at me,
Marine.
And I don't want to let him misrepresent the Marines.
Yeah,
totally. He got out for a reason,
right?
And then in my book I write from that moment on. My dad was trying to train me to be a soldier and make me tough, and I was going to be his soldier, just like my dad. But in my book I said, but in reality he was a man who never saw war, and that was my first case of PTSD in the struggle. And that's when a book
PTSD is real.
And it hops, right? It definitely hot, Doc. I think that was, like I said, my first. I can say I think I got it because people would always ask me, "Are you in the military?" When I was cutting hair, because I was a barber for 5 years, and I guess I kind of can get to that. But so time passed. So that was that memory. I don't remember anything else. I recall my mother probably being behind me, and I think that kind of made me want to protect her in my mind all of my life.
Because you were 5, so that's a lot to
especially when you're supposed to be the man of the house.
At 5,
right. And then that term was used. Maybe to take out the trash. Maybe to do whatever you got to do. Lincoln Park. It might be a mouse on a trap. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's good. So you got to take care of that. You the man of the house, handle that. And so I was trying to be a man. And I had my own pain. And we all had our own pain. But we were all hurting. So that went into med at Ritalin. Took Ritalin from like 6 to 12, and I was called a crack baby. I was called a Ritalin boy. I was double teamed a lot. And again,
when you say double team, what do you mean?
My siblings, my older siblings would do that.
Okay.
And it's crazy because I still wanted to protect them. Because
when you say double team, you mean like verbally assaulting
gaslit. I'd be gaslit into being attacked by my Achilles heel, which was me taking the Ritalin. Because when I took it, I'd be like zoned out. I was losing hair on the left side of my head. My aunt told me years later, when I was in the Navy at like 24, that I used to beg her to get my mother to take me off the medicine because I said my heart was hurting. And I didn't even remember that. You know what I'm saying? It was just, I just knew I hated it. And I used to play video games for hours because I didn't want kids to see me outside, so strung up on that dosage of it that I had. And some people may be blessed from that kind of medication. I've seen certain children, and even now I work, I see children, who need that kind of situation. I'd imagine, and because they're pretty hyper. So, but for me, it was a pleading not to take it because it was a lot. Maybe it was just a dosage. So that was from 6 to 12. Excuse them, the mouth sounds. And around 12 years old, that's when police brutality came.
Okay.
There was an officer. My mother called him a couple of times. If I overslept and didn't make it to school, the police were going to be called.
By who?
My mother.
Wow.
I didn't get to hop on the bus. I had handcuffs put on my back. The cops would come and they say, because of our rules per whatever, HPD, we have to put handcuffs on your back, and put you in the back seat. So now I'm going to Spratley in the back of a cop car. You know what I'm saying? Because I overslept. And I think a lot of that pain again, because I'm like my father. I'm named after him, look like him. That's
so the police would come and pick you up from your home.
She called him. Yeah, I didn't get the.
So this was you're saying your mom, because of your likeness to your father, you felt like your mom would do things to you, like call the police on you or any other type of abuse and stuff like that or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
There were a few times, at least twice, where this big black officer would come. She'd call him. HPD officer, and he grabbed my head. I mean, a big dude. I'm a grown man now. And you're a big guy. This guy's bigger than both of us. I mean, looked like a robot, right? Okay. And just grabbed
especially at a young age. So, perspective is everything.
Believe it. Right. He come in the house, and you'd hear the wood just, bending and squeaking when he come up the old house, and he palmed my head and pushed my head into the floor. Now, let me just stop and interject. This is not to demonize my family or to glorify negativity, but my latter story is where the beauty comes, because I just didn't stop me. But he palmed my head and pushed my head into the floor, like off the bed, and pushed me to the floor.
Saying what?
Well, he wouldn't say nothing. That's what got me. I just hear the radio chatter in the hallway, and he would, what's going on, man? I'm like, I remember one time I was reading a book. One of those 2 times I was reading the book on my bed, and he just, never mind the book, never mind you being calm. Let me grab you by your head and put you to the floor. And I remember I looked one time and I saw my mother, watching, from when I looked towards the door, because I had a curtain, I didn't have a door. So, and that's why in my book I say, in the back of my book I say, shout out, rest in peace, DMX. Shout out DMX, because he went through a lot of that same. I saw my story in his song, slipping and whatnot, and that kind of encouraged me to want to write this book, because there's so much pain out here, and people can't even see their pain. They're not even conscious of their pain. You don't know who you're
sitting next to, who you're eating with. Yeah. Yes,
and it was crazy because this happened around 12 years old. The officer being called and whatnot. Around 8th grade, Spratley Middle School. And then there came a time where my mother also had an issue. We realized she had a problem. Her brother was murdered. Shot in the head. Rest in peace, Unc. When they were he was around high school age. So that affected her. And then my dad, being abusive, hurt her. And my father's hurt because my dad's grandfather, who was like an Italian man, and his mother was like a half Irish, half Native American woman. He murdered his wife. Okay. So you see what I'm saying? And then my grandfather, you know what I'm saying? Because his parents went through that. My granddad shot my grandmother on my father's side. So I'm seeing, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm seeing how this thing is going down, and it's like, what happens
now too?
And what happens when slavery happens for centuries? What does that do to a people?
Well, we parent the way that we've been parented unless we consciously make a choice and make a decision to do differently. You have to actually want to do differently and consciously stop yourself. So it's good that you shared some of their backdrop. Like, your father didn't just become this abusive father.
That makes me happy. I don't want to put no dirt on nobody.
It's not dirt, it's reality. It's the truth.
Cause and effect.
It's the truth. And people cannot do better unless you're able to acknowledge first what the situation is and the truth. When we know better, we can do better. And if we don't know it, we act like we know, we're not doing any better. And so the reality of the fact is that you come from a history of aggressive men. Murderous. essentially. Emotionally out of control in some aspects, pushed in some ways.
Well, I would say there was a mental issue with my great grandfather. He went to a mental institution right away.
Wow.
He lost it. So we can't make that a conscious decision on his part. And then
Mental health.
yes. And you know, again, my sisters, they weren't perfect either. So I want to make sure, because I try to wrap what my story in a positive energy, high energy, and I want to guard it from those who are going to push it on against, you know, the males are doing it, or
Right.
women.
Essentially. Emotionally out of control in some aspects, pushed in some ways.
Well, I would say there was a mental issue with my great grandfather. He went to a mental institution right away.
Wow.
He lost it. So we can't make that a conscious decision on his part. And then
Mental health.
yes. And you know, again, my sisters, they weren't perfect either. So I want to make sure, because I try to wrap what my story in a positive energy, high energy, and I want to guard it from those who are going to push it on against, you know, the males are doing it, or
Right.
women, or the old, or the young. I want to make sure it's something that can free us and point us all to the mirror.
Right.
You know
It's
what I'm saying?
genetic. Mental health issues are genetic.
That's true.
And it's not based on the gender situation necessarily, you know. So
But trauma-
yeah, your family, the trauma, and all these things.
But trauma can be social too, because I was doing my research in school, and foster children get trauma when their foster parents have trauma. So trauma,
Very
trauma happens every day.
true. Exactly.
Yeah. Any
Exactly.
age. Babies can be traumatized.
yeah.
Elderly people can be traumatized.
Isn't that something else? The baby getting traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had babies get bit by when I was in school, a white mouse or rodent, and then that white fur can make that baby go crazy. So,
Yeah.
and I can tell you, I just got a little kitten. And I got that kitten trained, like, you know how you open a pack of like snacks, and then the cat can hear that noise, and then I do a little Italian finger, little point together thing, and I like I got a snack in my hand, and it'll come. So I get a bottle of water and just do this, and I do this with my finger, and that thing, it won't. I can call it all day. When I do that and I do this, it can't see it, it can't smell, so it gotta come to me.
Right.
Like, you ain't getting nothing but rubs, but
Yeah, you classically conditioning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
It's all psych.
Yeah. And so just getting back to, you know, the story, just, you know, because what's going to be important is for the people to see, I guess, to understand where your perspective is coming from as we get to the resilience portion, because you've overcome a lot. You know, definitely you've overcome a lot. So
Thank you.
we were up to about 12. So moving beyond 12 at this point, tell us a little bit about your life after 12.
So I had a brother. I told you I had an uncle whose father, whose life was taken by another young brother when he was in high school. Well, he had a son who was around my age. We were born around the same time. So he's like literally probably 6 months younger than me, and I always felt the need to protect him. And his brother went into foster care. His mother got into, you know, hard substances, and they went into foster care when me and my cousin were about 13. His younger brother was probably like 4 or 3, and someone had sadly beat his brother to death. And I was going to, so now this cousin lost his father to violence. Probably never really met him. You know, in my book I talk about my first processing of death came from homicide. You know, it's so hard to say goodbye. That takes me back to my uncle. And how many of us in the black community think about homicide when we think about death first? How many of us get to think about somebody being in a hospital surrounded by their grandchildren and dying full of love? Or is it somebody took their life and we got to go see, somebody got traumatized because they had to see the body and
we got to get some shirts made.
Right.
Yeah. You know, like, so, yeah, this was happening to my uncle, and I was going to go show my condolences to my cousin because I always felt the need to protect him. And I'm like, what should I say about the book, and what should I keep for the book? But it's too much in it to
People
worry
will
about
read
that.
it. Yeah.
People will read it. And you know, what I did was I went to go show my support to my cousin. I was going to go walk about 4 blocks over to go show my support. And an officer came. Well, 2 guys tried to jump me, 2 young boys. We were like 13 years old, so Lincoln Street, Queen Street area. And they tried to jump me. And then the officer came. Everybody ran but me. And somehow they worked so hard to get me into that fight. My jacket was down the street, you know. I'm 13, so this is like 2004. And near Lincoln Street, Queen Street area. And the officer got out of the car, a white male. So, you know, as I said, it's a black officer, white officer. Bad officers are bad officers. It crosses race, you know, for sure. And he pushed me to the car, pick up something. I'm like, hey, wait a second. They was trying to jump me. My jacket's right there. I'm using my hand. You know, can I get my head nodding towards my jacket, saying, can I get my jacket up the street? Like 40 feet, 30 feet down the street. And he's not really saying nothing. Kind of like the black officer, you know, not saying nothing, but certainly roughing me up, you know. So he put the cuffs on really tight. And I'm like, hey, man, they're tight. And basically, he put me in the car seat. He put me in that back seat. He left my jacket. And we kind of got into a bit of an argument, you know, because I'm like, they tried to jump me. I'm trying to show some love to somebody. And here you are acting like we're speaking two different languages or something. And he hit the gas, and then he hit the brakes, tried to make me hit my head in the back seat. And wow, we got to my mother's house, and basically that became a charge. And then I went to court like, man.
What did you get charged with? Resisting arrest, or I mean, what
okay. So what happened was this. I used to take care of my grandmother. I was 12, but from 12 to 13, I used to, like, you know, she was an oversized woman, overweight woman. I love her with a great heart, oversized heart too. She would take strangers off the street literally and let them live with us. Because my mother moved from Lincoln Park to move with her mother when I was 12.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was a co-pastor, my grandmother. And
Okay.
she preached and stuff, and I'd walk her to church and hop around and help her wash her. I'd actually clean her too when she used the bathroom, 1 and 2. Well, number 2. You know what I'm saying? Like I was, and that was kind of rough because I had male cousins. There was a lot of us, and female cousins, but I was the one living there, and I didn't really get the most love. I mean, like I was a good kid, you know, even though I was doing that for my grandmother. That was kind of rough for a young boy to do.
Absolutely.
So, you know, my nerves would get up, and I spit in the stool while cleaning her stool, you know, while cleaning it up into the stool. Because I didn't have the skill set I have now after college to deal with my emotions.
Right.
So that's how I cope with feeling, I guess, hazy in the mind or whatever, and anxiety. And I was asking the officer, can I spit out the window? And he wouldn't let me. Now, mind you, I'd have been had an officer put my head into the floor twice in my own room. You know, so he's like, no. And he hit the gas and then the brake and tried to make me hit my head. And I'm like, okay, this dude is like trying to mess me up, and I'm pissed right now. 13. And he pulls in front of the house, and he goes in the house, and this is what I did, what I shouldn't have done.
You spit.
I spat through the front of the window into the pedal area in that car. I was wrong for that, for sure. And I had so much guilt for years until I've learned, okay, this is how I coped at that time with anxiety. And an officer behind me seen it, right in the back of the car, right? So 2 months later, I go to court, and Miss Judge was a public attorney. She was my attorney at the time. Now she's a judge in Hampton. You know, God bless her. You know, she tells me in the courtroom, you're being charged with a felony for spitting on an officer. I'm like, huh? You know, and I'm on the bench, hunched over, like, I don't know if I can say I did this. And she's like, you have to say you did it, young man. That means you're a felony. And I'm not saying this is on her. This is a systematic situation right here. And I learned about this when I was getting my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. You know, this is a certain tactic that's used. I forgot the term. But the only reason I didn't have to say I caught catch a felony or say I had to do it was because like a month before, my mother, God bless her, you know, and this is not easy to say because, you know, even as Tupac said, you know, about his mother, you never want to down your mother, especially in the black community. But she had a hallucination one night while watching TV with me, and my family never gave me love about this situation. So I have to keep telling my story. Some did, but not all, you know. And what happened, we were watching TV. She saw the back of my head. I'm facing the TV. She could see the silhouette of my head in the TV because she's behind me, and the living room's dark. So everything's blue in the room. And she stood. We're watching wrestling, matter of fact, and I used to love wrestling. Oh man, The Rock. You know, I was inspired. I grew up watching it, so I'm captivated in it. And I see her standing in front of me, and she's like, "Did you pour water on me?" And I said, "No." You know, and I'm laughing, and I kind of grab her, and I walk her back to her chair. And I sit her down again, and I go back to watching TV again. Now, we're in my grandmother's house, the pastor, right? It's just me, my grandmother, and my mother. and she comes back up again, and this time she walks past me, and I didn't notice it, but something said to go look and see what she's doing. And I went into the kitchen, and I just saw her looking kind of like out the window, and then I see the silverware drawer open, and I see the moonlight on the silverware, and she's, you know, trying to get to the silverware, and it's rustling metal, and I see it shining on the moonlight, so I run, you know, and I had a cast on my leg at the time, so you know, I'm running down the hall, old house, you hear the wood creaking and whatnot, and my grandmother, it was just like Precious. When that TV was thrown down the stairs, and he said, "Leave that girl alone." That made me that book I got when I was in the barbershop before the movie came out. I didn't even know it was gonna be a movie, and I cried reading it. And then boom, Precious is out there, and I seen the movie. I'm like, whoa, that shook me because that sounded like my grandmother in that movie. And I'm watching, and my mother's chasing me with a knife, and I lock myself in the bathroom door, old bathroom. You know, you can literally see through the door, and you got to turn the knob just right in the twist just right to lock it, or it's gonna open right up again. My grandmother saying, leave him alone. And I hop out of the window, I hit my leg on the car on the side of the house, my socks is wet in the mud. Now I run to my great aunt house, and I tell what happened. And you know, my uncle, God bless him, his name is Ram in the book, because he's like, you know, a ram in the book, right on time, like for Abraham and his son. And he took me to his daughter in Newport News, and then he took me to school the very next day. But my Uncle Ram must have told my lawyer, or told me to tell my lawyer, and my lawyer told Judge Duggar in downtown Hampton. I was 13 years old. What happened? And he stood up. He said, "We're gonna throw the whole case out." Called me to the back, to the back chamber, and I was put in foster care. So me almost having my life taken actually saved me from a felony. And this is what I call blessed in the struggle. It took me, I had to process this and look back. Hindsight showed me the blessing. That kept me from getting a felony.
It didn't feel good in that moment.
Oh no, because then there was a group home. Then came Portsmouth, you know. And they tried to beat me to death. And I had to deal with that. And I didn't get no counseling, you know. And my mother wasn't even charged. And that's a whole nother situation in the book, a certain pattern that I noticed, because I skipped something.
Lack of responsibility taken for what has been done. Yeah. So that's a whole message at the table by itself. A lot of people struggle and stay in their struggle because people refuse to take responsibility for the things they've done. But we can't make them.
Right.
I think it's the system, but the system, I think, overlooks a lot too.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, wow. Yeah.
So now you're in foster care in your group home over in Portsmouth. Okay. All right.
So yeah.
Is this high school?
I started high school in Gloucester High School. From Spratly Middle School to Gloucester High School.
Yeah.
Boom.
So he's moving all around. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa.
Now they're playing acoustic guitars in the cafeteria. And there's a Pizza Hut.
It's way different in Gloucester. It's way different in Gloucester.
Yes.
Than Hampton and Portsmouth.
Yeah, so I went from Hampton to Portsmouth group home for like a month or two, having to fight powder bleach in my pocket kind of deal. Like I had to survive. And I can't even tell my family this, a lot of them, because there's not enough safe space to not be the victim of your mother. You can't be the victim of your mother. So I can't be a victim of my mother. How can I tell my story to you to get your love and to feel like it's okay? And especially if the state won't charge her. And it's okay, because I was there for my mother, as the story would show, until she left this world. I mean, and that's a whole other level of commitment, because she was committed in the mental institution. I had to see a lot of stuff. I had to deal with a lot of stuff, and I had to take the visual trauma and the auditory trauma of seeing her in a certain state for a while. But so back to the story. Yeah, foster care. A couple months. Then a foster mom in Gloucester, and that was amazing. It was a black man Marine. Well, he must have been like.
See, that would have scared me. The fact that my father was a Marine and you had the audacity to move me in the house with another Marine. Oh my!
He was like an older man. He lost his leg or something, or had a lot of it hurt. You know, shout out to my foster brothers and sisters. I love y'all, man. and they had like a lot of children. They came from New York, and they had like pictures on the fireplace. No, nice house, basketball court in the front yard, horses across the street. Everything was cool except in the morning time.
You see how big his smell?
Yeah.
Look, he has fond memories.
Right.
Yeah. Listen, it came for a second. I started feeling that. I was like, I can't be thinking this. But they started to make me think about college. And they kind of like made me feel like a child for once. And it was like, yo, this is kind of cool. But my granddad was already trying to get me, amongst others. But thank God he got me. So, other than the fog across the street in the morning time, because that reminded me of Jeepers Creepers, it was cool. They had a bunch of children. They had pictures all in the fireplace of all these children they've adopted over the years. And that went for about 5 months. And then my dad got me, so I went to Smithfield High School for probably the other half of 9th grade. Then I came back and moved with my granddad in Yorktown for like 10th grade. Then I went to Warner Robins, Georgia for 11th grade. In my 12th grade, I was at Phoebus High School.
Okay.
You was around like you were military.
Right.
Oh, man.
So you said your dad got you from the foster family in Gloucester. And then you went with your grandfather in Yorktown. Okay. And then who did you go with when you went to Warner Robins, Georgia?
Oh, my granddad had remarried. And my grandmother, whom we remarried to, had a daughter and son-in-law who had just came back from Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
So they had moved to Air Force Base, Warner Robins Air Force Base, and we had just moved down there to see them. And man, yeah.
So what was it like down there with them, and actually being with your grandfather? This is your father's father?
Yes.
Okay. So what was it like with him? Because this is
the one that killed his wife, right?
Oh no, that's his mother. His mother, my dad's grandparents, his grandparents.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we on the same page.
All right.
I think you and I think the same thing. Like, how did you live with the man?
Okay, locked up. Well, no, he died though. He would have been gone already.
Oh, okay. So what was it like in Warner Robins?
Warner Robins was cool. It was amazing because I had a big. Everybody was like, "Hey, you from New York?" That was their mind. You from New York?
Because you didn't sound like
I'm
that.
not from New York. This is during the snap age, so ATL was just getting it going. Everybody dressed like a pack of Skittles, and I come through with a big. I come through with a big jacket on, so I go, with the jacket on because it's kind of cool in the morning time, but by afternoon time it's hot. So that was the biggest. That was a hurdle, I guess you could say, with Gloucester. But other than that, it was kind of cool because I was living with my granddad. I had two dogs and a nice house. My dad and grandma. So.
Okay. And so then you come back here to Hampton. Now, who did you come back to Hampton with?
Oh, here we go. I stayed out to school one day, and again, we know what happened with my granddad's parents. He became a preacher. He became a father to his children. Yes, he had issues with my grandmother, understandably. I mean, he was in the house when that happened with his parents. So, of course, he's going to have issues.
Right.
And that's in the book with him and my grandma. But I stayed out of school one day. I studied, and I tried to call him. I couldn't call him, or maybe I called him. He didn't get to check the voicemail. I don't know. But I know that I got off the school bus, book bag on, went into the living room. Open the door, put the key in the door, go into the living room. My grandmother's on the recliner watching TV. My granddad's in the room. I close the door, go and talk to my grandmother, and I hear a voice behind me. Where were you? Where were you, son? And I'm like, I stayed at the school. I was studying. I tried to call you, and my granddad was never mean. I ain't gonna lie, I always felt less than him because he's very fair skinned. Like I said, it gets European on that side. You feel me? In my own family, and I felt less than my own images of my own great grandmother. Even felt less than my own grandfather. So my book, I'm touching on colorism too, but I'm only talking about my own life.
Right.
And at the end of every section in my book, there's a real deal spill section where I give hindsight, insight, and knowledge on what the story tells in the narration. So it's really clinical to this book. And my grandfather, I said I stayed at the school, and I remember, I don't know why I was scared, but I do remember him saying, "Say one more word, and your brain will be on the carpet." And I remember I was holding my book bag by the strings, and I'm looking, and I'm not moving. And then I hear him say, a while later, "Pack your bags. You're going back to your mother in Virginia." And in my book, I actually have an audio to where I have OK Google play so and so at the beginning of every section, and it was like, okay, Google, play Fabulous, feeling like I'm back, you know, and then I'm describing the interstate, and I'm back in Virginia, you know, and in my mind it's like, whoa, I'm back, and I'm kind of feeling like my uncles who did time, because I come from people who, you know, who have street credit, and it gets deep in my family, street wise and religion wise on my mother's side, holy and street too. It's crazy, and in respect to them, you know, because they put passion into that, you know, and they invest into that, and people who are lost look up to people who have hierarchy in the street, you know. And I can understand that. And I was trying to be that. I couldn't fit in. I couldn't be street enough for some reason. I just wasn't comfortable around Queen Street where it was all going down. And I'm like, my family's out here. What's wrong with me? You know, I felt like I was odd. And I was called a crazy white Lewis by people on my mother's side. So colorism hit me right in the face. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like on some, you ain't one of us. So I said, is it that, you know, white blood got me not being able to feel comfortable in the street? Is that why I'm off like that? No, it was all struggle, trauma, right? So that's a whole other thing. But I still admired my uncles, you know, and my family, of course. And
this is what you faced. You kind of ran dead smack into this aspect of your family when you came back from Georgia.
No, that's when I was like 6. I used to zone out because they used to all say it at different moments. So there must have been a group huddle where they all said, he the white Lewis, you know, and then they started talking crap, you know, crazy like that randomly. And I kind of stood up for myself when I was in the military, in the Navy, and I came back to Lincoln Park, and my aunt tried to say it. It was like, nah, okay, I'm a Lewis. So what's up? You know, and I kind of smiled, and it was like she let it go. She, you know, it is what it is. People do what they do when they can do it. I have great memories with her, great memories with my uncles, and I have it in the book. Anybody that I speak that is in the book and they're part of the lesson, I give credit to in that book. And I express how they're awesome people and how I wouldn't be who I am without them and the good that they did in my life. You know, so I was feeling like my uncle, kind of feeling like, man, it's like I just did a bid and I'm back. And some people thought I was, you know, they didn't know what, they didn't think I did a bid, but it was cool seeing people at Phoebus whom I didn't see since I was in 8th grade. I was in 8th grade. I went everywhere around the world.
You have been in every place essentially, like back and forth.
Right.
Yes. And then the new boy, always a new boy, right? And then I'm back in Phoebus. I see people I haven't seen in a long time. I stay with my mom for about 2 months before I realized I don't think I'm safe here. I don't think things have changed. Everything seems the same. And then I got a roommate while being in 11th grade. A roommate, her 5 nieces and nephews, her brother-in-law, and her sister in a 1-bedroom apartment in 11th grade.
So you moved in 11th grade. You moved out from your mom because you felt like you were not safe into a roommate situation with all of those folks in that house, one bedroom.
Yes, sir.
Oh wow. Okay.
I had got myself emancipated. Actually, I went downtown Hampton. Where should I go? You know, where should I go? I got myself free lunch. You know what I'm saying? So by the time I got to 12th grade, well, I stayed with the roommate for a while, and you know, they decided to move eventually. I was unloading tractor trailer trucks and Walmart distribution, so I'm doing hard work, you know what I'm saying? And then I got into barbering through New Horizons, that program, the following year in 12th grade. Even though it was a 2-year program, I got my foot in the door, you know, and that was my first dream, you know, my hood dream, you know. And I did that. Well, I wasn't barbering. I was doing part-time barbering, part-time McDonald's, because the tractor trailer truck drove off while I was getting to it, unloading it. I signed something so I couldn't sue, but of course they laid me off from Walmart distribution at that point. Like a truck drove off while you were in it. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Then they decided to move, so I wasn't the main holder on the lease, so I had to move. But when I was at McDonald's, I used to work there. You know, get off the school bus, go to school, my McDonald's stuff in my book bag, put it in my locker, smell grease through my locker, you know, get off, change clothes, go to McDonald's, get off at like 11, you know, Black Mac, you know, have to walk to the HRT, your Black Mac, right? Yeah, if I miss my bus, and I tiptoe past all the kids in the apartment because they was on the floor sprawled out, and I just tiptoe my book bag on in the dark, past them after I locked the door behind me every night, and then next day school, you know. So when they moved, I had to move back with my mom, and that didn't work because something happened, and it was an assumption made. kind of ridiculous and kind of comical about me, and that made me have to move. So God bless one of my sisters. She let me stay with her in Lincoln Park for a while, maybe 2 weeks. You know, because she was in front of the rental office. Rental office is there. People can get in trouble when they when they're, you know, having someone else stay with them, right? And but I thank God for that, because she kept me okay. And then I saw a girl at W&W across from Lincoln Park that I knew from 9th grade, and from Yorktown High School. And she had a baby at this point, and she was all the way from Yorktown to country all the way to Hampton. So I saw her at the store, and you know, we exchanged numbers. I went to my sister's house. I went to her house that night. And
Excuse me, sir.
Yes. It's a survival mode, right?
Clearly.
Yes. And I went back to my sister's house. I got my bag of clothes, and I took it to her house, and I went back to school the next day from Lincoln Park. A whole new bus stop. Somehow I got back to Spradley. Phoenix High School. And I got in the barbershop full time, like 2 months before graduating high school. And then I got an apartment, actually, a month after graduating high school, after 4 months of being a barber. It's like God opened the door. People started leaving the barbershop, and this brother from Brooklyn, you know, shout out to WHOV, you know, he took me under his had a big Rick Ross and big beard, cool brother, you know, and just took me in under his belt, you know what I'm saying? He said, "This booth is yours, cat dog meat." He started calling me. He called me dog meat. You know, whenever it's everybody in Hampton know, you know, pretty much me as a barber.
Okay.
They still see me. You still cutting? I'm like, no, I mean, I've been in the military and college, and I used to hold back tears telling people that, because it was I had accomplished so much, and I didn't know how to feel proud of myself, and I didn't know how to process loving myself and having pride, like what I've overcome. And basically, I did 5 years. You know, I was a barber for 5 years, but to go back, before finishing high school, after finishing high school, I got my own apartment. And a year later, I had, you know, $1,800 in cash for my first car that we were talking about earlier today.
Right.
And that was paying $600 a month, you know, rent, $150 a week booth rent, $50 a month for the bus, and $55 a month for electric.
Right.
You know, and I had managed to get myself food stamps. So, you know, my son was born when my lease ended that following August. That's a whole nother story right there. And then after 5 years as a barber, I got became a Navy. Got into the
You said
Navy.
your son was born? So the rest of that, was it with the young lady that you just disappeared with who had a baby?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, this is Lincoln Park. I stayed with her.
I can't keep up.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a real memoir. It's a real Antoine Fisher story. By the way,
read the book, because I can't keep up.
By the way, when I was younger, around 12, my probation officer took me to see Antoine Fisher. Black man, wore cowboy boots. And now that I say that to say this. Around 19, after I had my apartment I graduated 2008, my son was born 2009. I moved with my son's mom. I have words about that in the Real Deal Spiel, you know, hindsight 2020 guidance part of the book, because the book is about hope and guidance. Blessing and struggle, a hood memoir of hope and guidance. And I talk about that, you know, cohabitating and what that can lead to, and the end of good and bad of that.
Babies for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But except for me, I put my things in storage when she got pregnant. $5,000 worth of things, and by the end of it, I lost it all. Not very quickly. Within 2 months, I don't know how I got lulled into this whole family thing, and I just thought I made it, and I didn't. No one was there to tell me, no, buddy, you got some work to do. Right. You know, because I want to be an R&B. I want to be a singer. It was crazy, but I was believing in myself because I was kind of hitting. I was hitting my goals. You know.
But that's, I would say that's a piece, because you get into the resilience, listening to everything that you've been through and the different changes. What was it that kept you going?
My father making me think I was a Marine or a soldier with the trauma. I think that kept me from letting things hit me. And I think trying to prove people wrong.
Because that's something that when we go through things, some folks give up. And some folks become what they are told they are.
But God too. Let me just say God too.
Yeah, it takes something, and the question becomes: is it within us, or is it something that happens on the outside of us, or someone who inspires us to do better? Because we know with trauma, it's not necessarily who you are, but more so what happened to you. Oftentimes we want to know, why does so and so act that way, versus asking what happened to that person.
Yeah, and I have trauma. I totally have trauma, of course.
You have traumatized me today, sir.
Oh my goodness. Well, I hope
you think you have trauma. Good
I hope you blessed in my struggle.
I don't know about blessed in your struggle, but I certainly feel your struggle. It is emanating.
But it's not just mine. It's so
not,
many people.
and that's why we have you here today to have that conversation,
so
because so many people think that they're the only people going through.
Right.
And it's ordinary people that you just sit with, that you bump into, that you have no idea how much people have gone through. And it's exhausting to be so resilient all the time. So kudos to you for being able to maintain that level of resilience.
I gotta give God the glory. It's weird. It's honestly 2 books, because it's too much for one book.
I think it's more than 2. I think you've miscounted.
I'm looking for a movie.
Listen to me. You know what I'm saying? Listen.
One movie.
Check it out. When I was in the Navy, after 5 years as a barber, I got to zoom out of the struggle, because that takes too much time. 5-year barber, 4-year Navy. I drove to California, San Diego, and I watched this movie. I used to watch Antoine Fisher in my rack. I used to watch it on my laptop. Tell me why Denzel Washington and Derek Luke filmed that movie on the base that I was living on in San Diego. And I watched that. This when I was 24. At 13, I watched it in theaters with my probation officer. Now I'm watching. I'm like, wait a second. And I eat Panda Express right there, and that's in the movie. That mall is in the movie. Like, you know what I'm saying? I said, okay, it's a lot, And the thing is, there's nuggets. God showed me. I can see God's sign. I can see God's signs letting me know that I'm in this. I see you. But it's a lot about passing a test. That's a lot of it. It just pass the test, and eventually those aha moments, those moments happen, and you know that there's something bigger at play. It might take a lot of energy being generated by the struggle and the grind, but once you hit the top, boop, you see there's a piece that coincides with a previous piece, and then you get a desire.
Just
your
purpose
desire,
in your pain.
Right. Okay. And
it's all about perspective. You're spinning it to get the hope out of the situation versus the despair.
Right. Because I'm thinking now, you working with kids in similar situations that you were in, how does that work for you? Because I know sometimes if you haven't dealt with your own stuff, it bubbles up again when you see someone else in your struggle that you can relate to.
Totally. It totally bubbles up. Before I was doing what I do now, I went and I was in working with youth in a kind of a Scare Straight program in Vile Beach. And it was amazing. Just seeing the beds reminded me of the group home that I was in. And then, man, it was amazing just to see it. It's a lot of insight. It taught me that I did a good job, because I never really knew. I wasn't raised to pat myself on the back. I'm just learning to pat myself on the back. I'm just realizing that when I look at my struggle, I can see my accomplishments. A lot of us don't know how great we are because we don't feel our pain. When you feel your pain, the deeper you feel your pain, the deeper you can feel your glory. I'm gonna say that again. The deeper you can feel your pain, the deeper you can feel your glory. We don't know our glory because we don't feel our pain. We don't want to get next to our shame because we don't know that others share our story.
Right.
A lot of people are embarrassed or they feel weak by the situations that they go through, but they misunderstand that greatly, that it takes way more strength to get help and get the assistance that you need. And it's easier to just stay in it than to actually get out there and get that. It takes a lot of strength to get out there and get help.
Exactly.
And to admit I need help or I need someone to assist me.
And I got a lot of therapy. I got therapy after I got out of the military.
Let's see. That's the aha moment right for me. That you got some therapy.
I had to get it.
People need to know that that's necessary.
Yeah, you can't deal with trauma and not get therapy, because unfortunately when you go through trauma alone, it compounds itself. Because when you start self-diagnosing, self-treating and all, and you're
We need
doing
to ask
it,
them about that.
exactly. You know,
Doc.
yeah, you're blaming yourself, you're blaming others and everything or whatever. And when you're caught up in blame, it's hard to heal. And that's a piece of it. And that's, like I said earlier, that's why most people don't talk about the traumas that they've experienced and the abuse within the family, because it gets into, well, who are we going to blame for this? How far back can we go?
Not only that.
And what do you do about it?
Exactly.
A lot of times when you talk about the pain, you can only talk from a place of screaming, because you're screaming inside when you talk about it. So you need somebody to love you, to hug you once you talk about it. Because you might be swinging and crying literally while talking about something you never wanted to talk about because you were afraid. You know, I was always afraid to be a guy like my father. Even now, like I bought a little kitten. I love this kitten because this kitten loves me and it's so gentle, and it sees me as gentle too. I got lost in my dad's image, and a lot of these brothers who go into prison, you know, they're getting lost in their father's image. You know what I'm saying?
Or somebody's image.
Right.
Yeah, everybody's getting lost in somebody else's image. So we got to know who we are. We have to stop honoring the dishonorable people that we come from. This is how you break a legacy that slavery has left, I believe. And this is not, and I'm not saying that slavery encompasses the greatness of the black experience, you know, or what, because it doesn't. It doesn't. Slavery is a drop in the bucket compared to African history. You know, America is only 300 something years old. It's a drop in the bucket. You know, there's a lot of greatness in there. You know,
but it's significant trauma,
right?
That has definitely impacted how we see things, view things, and experience things in general.
Indeed.
The laws and everything else. We haven't done that show, but it is.
Right. So definitely some nuggets today, you know, in terms of just things to take away is one, get some therapy.
Please get some help.
Get some therapy, and two, just being able to share your story. You know, what was your message? You can't get glory if you're not sharing your story. And I probably done paraphrased that all wrong, you know?
But it feels right.
All right. The whole point is talk about it. Don't hold it in. When we hold things in, we end up traumatizing ourselves even more. And then, like you said, some people then self-medicate. Some people cut. Some people do all kinds of destructive behavior.
That's when the drugs and alcohol comes into play. Unfortunately.
Or hurting other people. If you're not hurting yourself, you can essentially hurt somebody else.
Before I joined the Navy, I'm going to tell you this because it's too much to tell you. It was a miraculous situation when me, my father, and grandfather got in a household together for about 4 months, and we found out at the end of it, my grandfather had cancer on his heart, brain, and lungs, and he was gone within a month and a half. And they both got me into the Navy. And you know, I come from a military family. My granddad has two brothers who were military, or brother who's military. My dad has two brothers who was military, and they got me in the military. And my granddad, before he passed, he said, "You want to make me proud, grandson?" He was getting chemotherapy at the time. He said, "Succeed in the Navy, and that'll make me proud." I went to boot camp. I had a whole miracle. I had a flashback after jumping in the pool for like 4 times of myself as a kid, and somebody picking on me with my childhood home, locking me in the bathroom with the water and scaring me with the lights out. I rented my rack in the Navy. I wrote about it, and I literally went and I swam for 5 freaking minutes in boot camp, and this is no joke. Hollywood stuff. So, you know, I can't be ashamed of my story.
Barry, we want to thank you for coming to share your story, and I just feel like this is immature to end your story. We're looking forward to reading that book, and we'll probably have to have you. Want to thank you for coming to share your story, and I just feel like this is immature to end your story. We're looking forward to reading that book, and we'll probably have to have you come back after we read the book to get clarification on some aspects of this story. So.
Exactly. But, you know, definitely take away with the mindset of getting some help, you know, talking to someone, sharing your story, because that's the only way to really deal with that trauma and build that sense of resilience within yourself. So this has been another great day at the table. I tell you, brunch is never the same, and it's never a dull moment. That's for sure.
I'm full.
Thank you so much.
Exactly. So I am Dr. Richard Mason.
And I am Dr. Tamara Williams.
And we want to thank you for joining us right here each and every Sunday on WHOV 88.1 FM Sunday Brunch. Keep your forward.
someday we'll be able to measure the power of words. I think they are things. I think they get on the walls. They get in your wallpaper. They get in your rugs, in your upholstery, in your clothes, and finally